The perfect man. Everyone admired. He was kind to everyone, except me. People used to say I was a lucky woman, that I had found a modern-day prince, polite, well-groomed, helpful, involved in the community. His name was David. He worked as a project coordinator at a tech company, attended church every Sunday, volunteered in social causes, and of course, always wore a pleasant smile. In front of others, he was flawless. He helped elderly ladies cross the street, brought coffee to co-workers, knew the neighbors by name and greeted them kindly, donated during Christmas, always the first to stand and applaud someone. With me, he was someone else entirely. When I think about how my story with David began, I still remember the bittersweet feeling it carries. Because it was there, in that seemingly harmless setting, that the trap started being set. It all started on a mild autumn afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee. I had just moved to the city for a new job as an administrative assistant at a tech company. I was excited, but also lonely. Starting over is never easy, especially in a city where you don't know anyone. It was in a local bookstore downtown that I first saw him. I was looking for a book on gardening, my little weekend refuge, when I reached for a copy on the top shelf and he appeared out of nowhere with a polite and kind smile saying, "Let me help you with that." He grabbed the book with ease and as he handed it to me commented, "This one's one of my favorites. You like plants too?" We started talking right there, between bookshelves and the smell of old pages. We talked about books, coffee, indie music, and how Nashville's fall had a melancholic beauty. His vibe was easygoing, warm, no rush, no aggressive flirting. It felt like we were simply recognizing each other. We exchanged contacts, and 2 days later, he invited me for coffee at a small, charming cafe tucked behind the university. When I arrived, he was already there, waiting with a book of poetry in hand and 2 coffees ready. That completely disarmed me. "You said you liked Rilke, remember?" he said, smiling. "Who does that nowadays?" I thought. "A man who pays attention, who listens, who cares," or so it seemed. Our relationship blossomed quickly. In the first few months, David was everything I had ever dreamed of. Smart, polite, the right amount of funny. He told silly jokes just to make me laugh, filled my phone with sweet messages, sent flowers to my job, left, little notes hidden in my purse, and above all, made sure to tell me how special I was. "You're different from every woman I've ever known," he'd say. "With you, I can be myself." He made me feel seen. Or at least I believed he did. In no time, we were together almost every day. He'd take me to his favorite spots, proudly introduced me to his friends, and made sure everyone knew we were dating. And everyone seemed to like him instantly. It was easy to see why. David was charming, attentive, a true gentleman. But behind the scenes, there was something I couldn't yet name. I remember one weekend we went to an antique fair in Franklin. I was fascinated by a vintage camera and said something like, "Wow, my dad had one just like this when I was a kid." David smiled, but with a distant look, and said, "Funny how you always talk about your dad. I thought he wasn't really around." It hit me in a strange way. He was right. My dad was absent. But the way he used that information, which I had shared in a vulnerable moment to cast a shadow over my nostalgia, felt cold, subtly cruel. But at the time, I brushed it off. I thought, maybe he's just being honest. These little cracks started to show here and there. But they were always disguised as concern, as care, and I ended up doubting my own feelings. David had a remarkable talent for making me feel lucky to be with him, like I had won the love lottery. And when he started commenting on how some of my clothes were a bit too flashy for work, or how some of my friends were people who don't help you grow, I heard those as advice. I wanted to please him. I wanted to believe he meant well. The first time he cried in front of me was after a small argument about a movie we watched. I said the ending was sexist, and he responded defensively. When he saw I was uncomfortable, he started crying, saying, "I'm just scared of losing you. Sometimes I don't know how to handle all this. You're so amazing. I'm afraid I'll mess it all up." That broke me. I felt guilty. I began to filter my words, my reactions. I wanted to protect this supposedly sensitive man who claimed to love me so much. It was a subtle, almost invisible cycle. And that's why so many don't see it. Because the abuser doesn't start by yelling, he starts by charming. The first time I met his family was that same Christmas. They welcomed me warmly. Everyone talked about how David was a golden boy. His mother proudly said, "He's always been kind, polite, and caring with everyone." And he was, with everyone, except me, when we were alone. But back then, I couldn't yet see it clearly. His mask was so well crafted, so carefully adjusted, that it made me doubt my own perception. David was the kind of man everyone loved. Neighbors praised his kindness. Friends said he was loyal. At work, he was seen as a role model. And me? I felt more and more dimmed, smaller, more lost inside myself. It took a long time for me to understand. I was being erased on purpose. And it all started in that bookstore. That moment when he offered to grab a book for me. It wasn't just a kind gesture. It was the first move in a very well-rehearsed choreography. A performance where he was the admired lead actor, and I, the invisible victim behind the curtains. One time, during a family BBQ, I fumbled while serving drinks and spilled soda on the tablecloth. Everyone laughed, except him. He looked at me with a cold smile and whispered in my ear, "One, more like that, and you'll wish you hadn't come." On the outside, he kept smiling, but inside, I died a little. No one saw. Or rather, everyone saw what he showed, but no one saw what I lived. Since I was a child, I learned to be a good girl, to not cause trouble, to please. I lived in fear of doing something wrong. My father was an alcoholic. My mother, a silent woman who only said amen to avoid fights. I grew up believing silence was a form of peace, and I believed that to be loved, I had to earn it, mold myself, stay quiet, adapt. When I met David, I thought I had finally found a safe love. He spoke gently. He was polite, helped carry my groceries. And when he introduced me to his family, his mother said, "My son would never raise his voice at a woman. You're lucky." I smiled, but my stomach turned. Because even in the beginning, David wasn't exactly the man everyone saw. The signs came as whispers. "You're wearing that top out? That friend of yours is too trashy. Doesn't suit you. Why so much makeup? Trying to attract someone?" Then came the comparisons. "You should be more like my ex. She was discreet. The pastor's wife is so elegant. You could learn from her." Then, control disguised as care. "Let me handle that for you. It's better this way. Stay home today. It's dangerous out there at night." Up to that point, it looked like concern. But the truth was, little by little, I was being erased. I was washing the dishes when he walked in, fuming, his face red. He had lost a big work contract. I tried to comfort him, told him everything would be okay. He didn't want to hear it. He threw the glass he was holding against the wall, and before I knew it, his hand hit my face hard. I froze, my cheek burning, eyes filled with tears. He dropped to his knees, crying, I'm sorry. I've never done this before. You know me, I'm just stressed. Please, don't leave me." And I hugged him. Yes, I hugged the man who had just hit me. Because that's what I'd learned, that love always deserved a second chance. With every new assault came a better excuse. "You provoke me. If you didn't yell, I wouldn't do this. You push me too far." Then came the gifts, flowers, getaways, fancy restaurants, Instagram posts with romantic captions, and everyone commented, "Beautiful couple. He treats you like a queen. You're so lucky, girl." Only I knew that before that dinner photo, I had a bruised rib from being shoved into a table. And that, in the restaurant's bathroom, he made me promise I'd smile properly in the pictures or else. Or else what? I didn't even know what to fear anymore. Every day was a new form of punishment. David rarely hit my face again. He was smart. He preferred pushing. Hard pinches on my arm, punches to the thigh, slaps on the back. Once, he threw boiling water near my leg. Luckily, it hit the floor. He said it was an accident. Another time, he locked me in a room for hours because I raised my voice in front of friends. But the worst? The worst was when he pushed me down the stairs. I was 9 weeks pregnant. We had an argument because he said I was getting fat and sloppy. He pushed me hard. I fell. I bled. I lost the baby. And he said, "Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Now we can focus on us." Time went on, and I lost connection with everything and everyone. My friends stopped calling. My parents barely knew how I was. David controlled my phone, my email, my calendar. I could only go out with permission. I had to quit my job because he said my boss looked at me funny. He looked at me funny. The irony was, everyone looked at me with admiration. They said, "You have the perfect man." No one imagined that at home, I slept in fear, that I covered bruises with makeup, that I cried quietly not to upset him, that I was afraid of dying, and even more afraid of leaving and no one believing me. I remember exactly the day I escaped. It was a Wednesday afternoon. David had left for work earlier than usual. I stood frozen for a few minutes, staring at the front door, unlocked. For the first time, he forgot to lock it from the inside. My hands were trembling. I grabbed my purse with documents, a prepaid card I had hidden for months, and a change of clothes. I even left my phone behind. I knew he tracked everything. I went to a bus station, got on the first one that came, and didn't get off until my heart slowed down enough for me to breathe. Hid in a women's shelter in suburban Austin. They didn't ask much. They took me in, gave me a small room with a twin bed and a blue blanket. But for the first time in years, I slept without fear. I cried for 3 straight days. Cried everything I had held inside for so long. One of the volunteers, named Lorraine, looked me in the eye and said, "You're not crazy, and you're not alone. You survived." Those words shattered me and rebuilt me. It wasn't easy. Escaping was just the beginning. David tried to find me. Told mutual friends I had lost my mind. Told his family I was unstable, ungrateful, unhinged. He even posted online that I had left him for no reason at all. I was emotionally wrecked, scared, groundless, with destroyed self-esteem. I doubted everything, even my sanity. But in that time, in the silence of my shelter room, I found something greater. One day, I opened a Bible someone had left on the communal shelf. It fell on Psalm 34:18. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." In that moment, I cried like a child. For the first time in years, I felt like God saw me. He wasn't punishing me. He was waiting for me. I started praying, timidly, awkwardly. But it felt like, in the middle of chaos, a new seed was sprouting. Rebuilding my life was like learning to walk again. First, I got a temp job at a coffee shop. Then, an internship at a nonprofit that helped immigrant women affected by violence. Over time, I took online courses, started studying psychology. I fell in love with the idea of understanding what hurt me and turning it into something that could heal others. I went to therapy, met other survivors. We shared stories, pain, fears. We laughed and cried together. I learned to look in the mirror without shame, without guilt. I discovered I wasn't weak. I was a survivor. And one day, at a support group, a woman told me, "You have a light when you speak, like you know pain from the inside out. You should help more women." That's when my purpose was born. Today, I live in a small apartment in North Texas. I work as a therapist specializing in narcissistic abuse and domestic violence. I see women every day who, like me, were silenced by fear. I created a support network called Living Voices, where victims can speak, be heard, embraced, and guided, without judgment, without pressure. And when someone asks me, "How do you listen to so many painful stories without breaking?" I answer, "Because I've been there, and now I know there's life after hell." People still ask about David. I heard he's still keeping up appearances, polite, polished, active on social media, doing charity work, getting pats on the back, maybe even remarried. And sometimes I wonder, will the next woman also believe he's a prince? Will she live through the same hell I did? That's why I chose to tell my story, to rip off his mask, to rip off the mask of so many like him, so that other women, listening to this now and recognizing themselves, understand you're not alone. You're not exaggerating. You're not crazy. You're just with someone who learned to be kind to everyone, except you. And that is reason enough to leave. If you heard this story and felt your heart tighten, if you remembered a similar situation, if you're living with someone who smiles in public but kills you silently behind closed doors, don't ignore that feeling. The pain you feel is real. You deserve respect, safety, love, without fear. And if you've already survived, share your story. Your voice might be the lifeline that helps another woman escape. If you want to share your testimony or seek support, write to us. We hear you. We believe you. We walk with you.